Hello, everyone. So welcome to Nebula Graph community meeting. So we're having this bi-weekly. So I will get started. So we don't have newcomers joining today. So as usual, we will have new members to be introduced first. We don't have today, and then I will give project updates. Then we will have ad-hoc topics. Today, I'm going to share something around the Raspberry Pi, which is a single board computer that running NebulaGraph on top of that. And then if we have someone joining with us, we will have open floors for sync discussion and the QA. So this is still needed, although we are running on the async communication in the most cases, but sync discussion will benefit us anyway in some cases. So anyone can bring topics or discussion around any areas of Nebula Graph. So you can bring your topics or ideas on our Etherpad, and all the information can be fetched on our GitHub in the wiki part. So we will have it every 2 weeks. And afterwards, we will have the video being synced and archived as a video and also a text version of the meeting. So we will start with the project updates. So in last 2 weeks, we have a new release in a minor version, which is 3.0.2. So the major point of this small hotfix is that we put the ARM support on the Docker image build included. So from this small version in Docker Hub, the Nebula Graph image comes with both the Intel architecture and ARM-based architecture in 64-bit. So the major another thing that I didn't put in this slides is we will have the 3.0 release in upcoming weeks, and the first release candidate, the first RC, is also tagged in a branch called release Heaven 3.1. And if you are interested in that, you can check that release as well. But it's the major new contents comes from the master anyway. So in past 2 weeks in master branch, we have a couple of major PRs being merged. The very first one is that we finally support this type of query that you can put a pattern in the where clause. So this is very handy for certain use cases, and is being required for some community users. So boom, we finally have that. Another thing is that previously we have some issues when in a pattern, one of the alias or variable being claimed twice. So it was not supported, and now it's supported here. And this is a huge issue that comes with like 10 of PRs as a subtask that with the jointly efforts from the whole community, our contributor has made it work that we have so many more comments on the code base. So to me, that when I was trying to make some contributions on the graph engine, that I noticed that a lot of the code base is not easy to be understand, especially for the new comers on the database area. And now it's much better that with the works of the last few months, a lot of new comments, even with some ask art diagrams being introduced in the comments. So it's much better, but we are making it even better in upcoming months as well. But this is a huge milestone. So be sure to check out the code base. There are a lot of beautiful comments now. And another thing is that in the show job, we have made some improvements that the field jobs, there will be some brief field reasons in the show job ID output. You don't have to look into the logs to know why it failed. Another thing is the balanced data. As we know from the 3.0, for some reason, we noticed some unstable stable reasons. There will be some a rare case that balanced data will fail and will cause some data loss. So we put the balanced data function on hold from the 3.0, and now we add it as an experimental feature back to the master. And from 3.1, the balanced data will be usable again as an experimental feature. We implemented that in a different way in enterprise version because we have the zone support in enterprise version. So this is a big change for the user. So 3.0 is quite usable as a production candidate, as I can consider. Another thing is that storage service. We have known that from the 3.0, we implement a new mechanism on the storage service discovery, because previously, if the service is up and it notified the meta service that it is up, then it can be used. It is marked as the online in the service states. But now we add the actual step before it's being online. We mark it registered as offline, but it needs the user the manual inventions to explicit ad hosts to actually activate the service to be marked as online and usable. But this brings confusion to the users that was experienced with the 2.0, 2.x version of Nebula Graph. So they will only see the offline in the service status command. So we add an actual highlights here that you need to do the ad host to make it online, instead of confusing suspicion on the service states itself. So this is hopefully we are making it more user friendly, and we add more highlights in the documentation as well to remove this boundary, this blocking issue, to a lot of old users, and we felt sorry for that. Another thing, big news, is that in our Kubernetes operator, we finally support the 3.0 of NebulaGraph, and it's merged in last week by Kevin. So thanks to that. And the Porsche, you can use that now. Yeah, thank you. So the ad-hoc topic today is around the Raspberry Pi, and that we all love Raspberry Pi, right? And it's getting really expensive these days because of the global chips issue. So NebulaGraph supports the ARM, so in theory it can be run on any Raspberry Pi. Support the ARM v8 in 64 bits. So I tried this in my SBC, which is not a Raspberry Pi but similar. So this is the Pi I got. It's called RoxPi. It's a similar SBC but with the neural processor unit, NPU. So maybe I will leverage in this NPU capability to running the the machine learning workloads. So maybe I can create something to share with you in upcoming months. I'm thinking about that. So you can run NebulaGraph on this kind of board, because NebulaGraph comes with support of both Intel architecture, ARM, and even MIPS. And as I mentioned, from next version, the NebulaGraph will come with the Docker image out of box supporting ARM-based system. Actually, the best way running Nebula Graph on a single on the edge case on the small board is you are running the single board build. So we introduced this build option since 3.0. So we removed the RPC call between the graph and the storage service. We combine them in the one process. So they will become smaller and thinner overhead. So it's actually a more ideal, smaller footprint when you're actually running this on production in the edge computing case, smaller as this SBC. But in this sharing, I'm just to prove it's a POC that is working. So I'm using an easier way, but it's not the best way. I'm using it actually on with the Nebula Graph Docker Compose. So underlying is still much more processes. It's a cluster still, but you don't need a cluster in the Pi, right? But we can, yeah. And in this article on my blog, I'm leveraging the Docker Compose, and this is the board. Is awesome, right? And so what I do is I bootstrap Ubuntu on this card, single SBC, and I installed Docker, and then I just installed Docker Compose. And this is a blocking issue that the official documentation on Docker to install Docker Compose is not valid for the SBC because it's not supporting the ARM properly. So the best way, alternative mitigation, is to install the pipe. It's the package management for Python. And afterwards, you use the pipe3 install Docker Compose, because Docker Compose is actually a Python library. And you will have this Docker Compose ready, up and ready after box. And then you just clone the Docker Compose repository of the Nebula Graph, and you run docker up with the -d, refers to running the process in background, and it will pull the ARM-based image from the Docker hub and have everything up and running as so. I will demo it later. And you can even have this ARM-based console, which is the client command line client for the Nebula Graph. It comes with both Windows, Mac, ARM, and Intel Linux support. So after you give a permission of execution, you can run this on your local host. And be sure to add host, as I mentioned. This is needed, or your storage service will not be opened online. Then you can play with your console. So use the Play Basic Player. This test, it's the same data set in our documentation, will be imported to the Nebula Graph. It will take you around 1 minute, and then you can use this from the console. Use the graph space and query the ngql. And now I will give you a small demo on that. We'll do it from scratch. So you can see this is actually the board, and it's actually in my background if you can see it in the blurred area. And it's running on Ubuntu. It's Rock Pi 3 Module A, and it's actually, it's an ARM-based operating system. You can see it's ARC64, and I'm using the cluster version. And you can see everything is up and running in different replica. And we can, I'm using this client also from this Pi. It's very cute. And we are using this database space. And I'm giving the same query that I introduced in the project updates, that we're matching all the players that serve something, serve, and where the version are with you know, following another player. So this is a match pattern in the where clause. So, oops, it's quite responsible, right? Responsive, right? And we can see it's not that consuming, that memory consuming, and we can see it's quite usable already, right? It's not consuming a lot of resources, so it's quite cool, right? I'm looking forward to make something even cooler on this board with Nebula Graph later, and I hope I will share with you around that too. So okay, and that is all around this ad hoc topics. Then we will move on to next part. Okay, we already demoed that. Okay, so we are making, I will call this an end before that. So remember, we are having this bi-weekly, and you will have, be sure to subscribe our meeting in the Zoom. We'll have a Google Calendar. It's a shared calendar, and everything here will be can be fetched from our wiki. And be sure to join our Slack channel. And one thing before we call this an end is we have Nebula Graph Cloud maintained and running by the VSoft team, and it's available now as an open beta on the Azure. So search graph database, you will find the Nebula Graph Cloud here. So it's in a very cheap price now in the beta period. So be sure to check it out if you're interested. So we will call this the end. Bye-bye.